My friends, come close, pull up a chair, and let me tell you something that took me almost 20 years of practice to fully understand. Something so simple, so ordinary, sitting right there in your kitchen, that most people walk past it every single day without ever knowing what it can do for their legs, for their balance, for their independence, for the rest of their life. I want you to imagine something with me for just a moment. I want you to imagine yourself at 90 years old, not frail, not shuffling, not gripping a walker with white knuckles, terrified of the next step. I want you to imagine yourself at 90, walking into your grandchild's wedding, climbing 2 flights of stairs to get there because the elevator was broken, and nobody in that room even blinking twice. Because to them, that's just who you are. The one who still moves like life hasn't caught up with you yet. That image, that person, is not a fantasy. That person is not some genetic lottery winner. That person is the result of decisions made decades earlier, decisions made in kitchens just like yours, at dinner tables just like yours, with forks and spoons just like the ones sitting in your drawer right now. And today, I am going to tell you exactly what was on that person's plate. I've spent my career watching 2 very different versions of aging walk through my clinic doors. One version comes in slower each year, more hunched, more hesitant on the stairs, more afraid of falling, more dependent on family, more resigned to the idea that this is simply what getting old means. Weak knees, aching hips, legs that betray you the moment you need them most. And then there's the other version. The other version comes in at 75, at 80, at 85, still gardening, still climbing ladders to clean gutters against my explicit medical advice, still chasing grandchildren around the backyard, still standing tall with legs that carry them exactly where they want to go. For years I asked myself what separates these 2 groups. Is it luck? Is it genetics? Is it money, access to fancy gyms, personal trainers, expensive supplements? And after decades of watching real patients live real lives, I can tell you the answer is almost never any of those things. The answer, more often than not, comes down to what has been quietly, consistently, day after day, going into their bodies. And there is one category of food, one that I am about to walk you through in detail, that stands head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to protecting the strength of your legs as you age. Now, before I tell you what it is, I need you to understand why your legs are so important, because I don't think we talk about this enough. We talk about the heart. We talk about the brain. We talk about cholesterol and blood pressure and memory. But your legs, ladies and gentlemen, your legs are your lifeline. Your legs are not just there to carry you from the couch to the refrigerator. Your legs are the single greatest predictor of how long you will live independently, how long you will stay out of a nursing home, how long you will stay out of the hospital, and frankly, in many studies, how long you will live at all. There is a reason geriatric doctors like myself obsess over something called grip strength and leg strength in our older patients. It's not vanity, it's survival. The muscles in your legs are the largest muscle groups in your entire body, and they are metabolically active tissue, meaning they burn calories, regulate blood sugar, support your bones, protect your joints, and keep your balance system intact so that you don't become one of the 28% of adults over 65 who report a fall every single year. A fall, my friends, is not just a bruise and a scare. A fall in a 70-year-old, an 80-year-old, a 90-year-old can be the beginning of the end. A broken hip in an elderly person carries a mortality rate within 1 year that would shock most people. So when I talk to you about strong legs, I am not talking about vanity. I am not talking about looking good in shorts. I am talking about the difference between independence and dependence, between living in your own home surrounded by your own memories, or living in a facility surrounded by strangers. So why do legs weaken as we age in the first place? This is where I want to slow down, because understanding the why is what makes the what to eat make sense, and once it makes sense to you, you will never forget it. Starting around the age of 30, and this shocks most people, we begin losing muscle mass. It's called sarcopenia, and it is one of the most underdiagnosed, underdiscussed conditions in all of modern medicine. From 30 onward, you can lose anywhere from 3 to 8% of your muscle mass per decade if you do nothing to stop it. And here's the cruel part, this loss accelerates as you get older. By the time you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. That muscle loss can double or even triple in speed if the body isn't given what it needs. And the legs, being the largest muscle group, often show the effects first and worst. That's why you'll see an elderly person who still has strong hands, strong arms even, but whose legs have become thin, whose knees seem to buckle a little more than they used to, whose walk has slowed from a stride to a shuffle. This is not simply old age. This is a biological process called sarcopenia, and it is, in large part, preventable and even reversible at any age, through the right combination of movement and, most critically, nutrition. And here is the piece that most people get wrong. Most people think the answer is just exercise more. And yes, movement matters enormously. I'll come back to that. But here is what decades of clinical nutrition research has taught us, and what I wish every single patient understood the moment they turn 50. You cannot build or preserve muscle, no matter how much you exercise, if your body does not have the raw materials to do so. Muscle is not built from willpower. Muscle is built from protein. Specifically, muscle is built from amino acids, the building blocks that come from protein-rich foods, and as we age, our bodies become less efficient at using that protein. This is called anabolic resistance. It means that an 80-year-old body needs significantly more protein than a 30-year-old body to build the exact same amount of muscle. And yet, ironically, what happens to most people's diets as they age? They eat less. Appetite declines. Chewing becomes harder. Cooking a full meal alone feels like more effort than it's worth. Soup and toast start replacing meat and vegetables. And so, at precisely the moment in life when the body needs more protein than ever before, most people are consuming less of it than ever before. This mismatch, my friends, this exact mismatch, is one of the single greatest hidden drivers of weak legs, frequent falls, and lost independence in people over 60. So now let's get to it. Let's talk about what you should be eating every single day, starting today, to protect and even rebuild the strength in your legs. And I want to be honest with you. There is no single miracle pill, no exotic berry from a rainforest, no expensive powder in a fancy tub that is going to do this for you. What I am about to describe to you is food. Real, ordinary, accessible food. Foods that have nourished human bodies for thousands of years. Foods your own grandmother probably had in her kitchen. The magic isn't in rarity. The magic is in consistency. At the very top of the list, and I say this to every single patient who sits across from me in my office, is eggs. Yes, the humble egg. I know there has been decades of confusion around eggs and cholesterol, and I want to clear that up right now, because that confusion has cost people muscle mass unnecessarily. Modern research has thoroughly walked back the old fear of dietary cholesterol from eggs driving heart disease in most healthy older adults. What eggs give you is something remarkable. A complete protein, meaning it contains all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot produce on its own, in a ratio that is almost perfectly designed for muscle synthesis. One egg contains around 6 to 7 grams of high-quality protein, along with vitamin D, which I will come back to, and choline, which supports the nerve signals that tell your leg muscles to fire correctly when you take a step. For my patients over 60, I often recommend 2 to 3 eggs a day, prepared however you enjoy them, boiled, scrambled, poached, made into a simple omelette with vegetables. It is one of the most affordable, most complete sources of muscle, protecting protein on this entire planet, and I want you to start treating it not as an occasional breakfast item, but as a daily non-negotiable habit. Right alongside eggs, I want you to think about fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, trout. These fish give you 2 things simultaneously that your legs desperately need as you age: high-quality protein and omega-3 fatty acids. Now here is something most people don't know. Omega-3 fatty acids don't just protect your heart and your brain. Multiple clinical studies have shown that omega-3s actually help combat that anabolic resistance I mentioned earlier. They help your aging muscles respond better to protein, essentially making the protein you eat more effective at building and preserving muscle tissue. Sardines, in particular, deserve so much more credit than they get. They're inexpensive, they come in a can with a shelf life of years, and they are absolutely packed with protein, omega-3s, and calcium from those soft, edible bones. Calcium that goes directly towards strengthening the bones your leg muscles are attached to. I tell my patients, aim for fatty fish at least 2 to 3 times a week, and if fresh fish feels expensive or inconvenient, canned sardines or canned salmon are just as powerful and a fraction of the cost. Now let's talk about Greek yogurt and cottage cheese, because these two foods are, in my clinical opinion, some of the most underrated tools for leg strength in the entire dairy aisles. Both are extraordinarily high in protein, particularly casein protein, which digests slowly, meaning it provides your muscles with a steady stream of amino acids over several hours rather than a quick spike. This matters enormously for older adults, because that slow, sustained release helps counteract the reduced efficiency I mentioned earlier. A single cup of Greek yogurt can contain 15 to 20 grams of protein, and cottage cheese often has even more. Both are also rich in calcium and, often, vitamin D if fortified, giving your bones the support structure your muscles need to actually pull against. I recommend a serving of one or the other daily, whether that's Greek yogurt with berries in the morning, or cottage cheese with tomatoes and olive oil at lunch. Simple, accessible, powerful. Legumes deserve their moment here too. Lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans. For those of you who may be reducing meat for health, cost, or personal reasons, legumes are an absolute gift. They combine protein with fiber, which supports gut health and stable blood sugar, both of which indirectly protect muscle mass by reducing the chronic inflammation that accelerates sarcopenia. Lentils alone can provide around 18 grams of protein per cooked cup. I often tell my patients to build what I call a grandmother's stew. Lentils, a little olive oil, garlic, tomatoes, whatever vegetables are on hand, simmered slowly. It is warm, it is comforting, it is easy to chew and digest, and it quietly delivers exactly what your legs need. And now, let me talk about something that surprises many of my patients: leafy green vegetables, specifically things like spinach, kale, and Swiss chard. You might be thinking, Doctor, I thought we were talking about protein for muscle. Why are we suddenly on vegetables? Here is why. Your muscles do not exist in isolation. They exist in an environment inside your body, and that environment needs to be free of excess inflammation for your muscles to properly repair and grow. Leafy greens are loaded with antioxidants and nitrates, compounds that have been shown in research to improve blood flow to working muscles, which means more oxygen and more nutrients delivered directly to your legs when you walk, when you climb stairs, when you stand up from a chair. Nitrates from leafy greens have even been studied specifically in older adults and shown to improve muscle efficiency during physical activity. I recommend a serving of leafy greens at least once a day, whether sauteed with a little garlic and olive oil, blended into a soup, or simply added raw to a salad. Let's talk about vitamin D, because I promised I would come back to it. And I consider this one of the most critical, most overlooked pieces of the entire leg strength puzzle. Vitamin D is not just about bone health, although that alone is crucial. Weak bones cannot support strong muscles, and a fracture can end independence overnight. But vitamin D receptors exist directly inside your muscle tissue, including the muscles of your legs. Low vitamin D levels have been directly linked in study after study to reduced muscle strength, poor balance, and significantly increased fall risk in older adults. And here's the troubling part. As we age, our skin becomes less efficient at producing vitamin D from sunlight, sometimes by as much as 50% less efficient than in our younger years. This means that food sources become even more important. Fatty fish, egg yolks, and fortified dairy products all contribute vitamin D to your diet, and depending on your blood levels, which I always encourage patients to have checked with a simple blood test, supplementation may also be appropriate. I cannot stress enough, ask your own doctor to check your vitamin D levels. It is one of the cheapest, simplest tests that can reveal one of the most fixable threats to your leg strength. Now, alongside vitamin D, we must talk about calcium and magnesium together, because they work as partners. Calcium, found in dairy, leafy greens, sardines with bones, and fortified foods, builds the mineral density of the bones that anchor your leg muscles. Magnesium, found in nuts, seeds, whole grains, and dark leafy greens, is essential for proper muscle contraction and relaxation. Magnesium deficiency has actually been linked to muscle cramps and weakness, something so many of my older patients complain about, especially at night. A handful of almonds, a spoonful of pumpkin seeds, these small additions to your daily routine can make a measurable difference over time. I want to mention berries here too. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries. These aren't a protein source, but they are rich in anthocyanins and polyphenols, compounds shown in research to reduce the oxidative stress and inflammation that accelerate muscle breakdown in aging bodies. Adding a handful of berries to your yogurt, your oatmeal, or simply eating them as a snack is a small habit with outsized benefits for the internal environment your leg muscles are trying to repair and rebuild in every single day. And let's not forget healthy fats, extra virgin olive oil, walnuts, avocado. These support the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins we've discussed, particularly vitamin D, and they help manage the chronic low-grade inflammation that is so often at the root of age-related muscle decline. A drizzle of good olive oil over your vegetables, a small handful of walnuts as an afternoon snack. These aren't indulgences. They are functional additions to a leg-strengthening diet. Now, my friends, I want to bring this all together into something practical, because I know that hearing a list of foods can feel overwhelming, and what I want to leave you with today is not overwhelm, but clarity, and even more than clarity, hope. If I had to boil down everything I've just told you into a single daily template, something you could actually follow starting tomorrow morning, it would look something like this. Start your day with eggs, whether scrambled, boiled, or in an omelette with spinach. Add a serving of Greek yogurt with a handful of berries at some point in your day, whether that's breakfast or a mid-morning snack. Make sure at least one meal includes a serving of fatty fish or, if not daily, at least several times throughout the week. Salmon, sardines, mackerel. Build a meal, even just once every couple of days, around legumes, lentils, chickpeas, beans, especially on days you're eating less meat. Include a serving of leafy greens at least once daily, sautéed in a soup or fresh in a salad. Finish your meals with healthy fats like olive oil, and snack on a small handful of nuts or seeds rather than processed crackers or chips. This is not a complicated diet. This is not a restrictive diet. This is not a diet that requires you to throw away everything in your pantry and start over. This is simply a shift in emphasis, a decision to prioritize the foods that build and protect the muscles that carry you through your life. But I would be doing you a disservice, truly a disservice, if I stopped at food alone, because food is only half of the equation. The other half, and I promise you this is not a request to become a bodybuilder or spend hours in a gym, is movement. Muscle protein synthesis, the process by which your body actually uses that protein you're eating to build and repair muscle tissue, is dramatically enhanced by resistance and load-bearing activity. This does not mean you need to lift heavy barbells. This means simple things, standing up from a chair without using your hands 10 times in a row, once or twice a day. Walking, even just around your block, every single day, rain or shine. Climbing stairs when you have the option instead of avoiding them. Simple bodyweight movements like heel raises while holding onto your kitchen counter, or gentle squats using a chair for support. These small acts of movement, combined with the nutrition we've discussed, send a powerful signal to your body that says, these legs are needed, keep them strong. Without that signal, even the best diet in the world has less to work with. But combine the two, the right food and consistent, gentle movement, and you create exactly the conditions your body needs to maintain, and in many cases actually rebuild, muscle well into your 70s, 80s, and yes, even your 90s. I have seen it in my own patients. I have watched 82-year-old women who could barely rise from a chair without help transform over the course of a year into women who walk their neighborhood every morning, groceries in hand, no assistance needed. This is not a rare miracle. This is what happens again and again when the body is finally given what it has been asking for all along. I also want to say something about hydration because it is so often forgotten in these conversations. Muscle tissue itself is composed of a significant percentage of water, and even mild dehydration, which becomes increasingly common in older adults due to a naturally blunted thirst response, can measurably impair muscle strength and increase feelings of fatigue and weakness in the legs. I encourage my patients to keep a glass or bottle of water visible and within reach throughout the day, not waiting until they feel thirsty, because by the time thirst hits in an older body, mild dehydration may have already set in. I want to speak directly now to anyone listening who feels discouraged, anyone who thinks, "Doctor, I'm already 75, I'm already 80, isn't it too late for me?" I want you to hear me clearly on this point. Because it matters more than almost anything else I've said today. It is not too late. The body's capacity to build muscle, while it does decline with age, never disappears. Study after study, including research published in respected geriatric and sports medicine journals, has shown that even individuals in their 80s and 90s, even individuals in nursing homes with significant frailty, can gain meaningful muscle strength within just 12 weeks of improved nutrition and light resistance activity. 12 weeks. That is not a lifetime commitment. That is 3 months. 3 months of eating the foods I've described today, 3 months of standing up from your chair a few extra times, 3 months of a short daily walk, and researchers have documented measurable strength gains in people who thought their strongest days were permanently behind them. I have watched this transformation happen in my own clinic more times than I can count, and every single time, it reminds me why I do this work. I think about one patient in particular, a woman I'll call Margaret, though that is not her real name, who came to see me at 79 years old after a fall in her kitchen left her terrified to walk without holding onto furniture. Her daughter had begun researching assisted living facilities, convinced her mother's independence was coming to an end. When I looked at Margaret's diet, I saw exactly the pattern I described earlier: toast for breakfast, a small sandwich for lunch, soup for dinner, protein almost entirely absent from her plate, not out of ignorance, but because eating alone had become tiring, and cooking felt like too much effort for too little reward. We didn't overhaul her entire life. We simply added 2 eggs to her breakfast. We added a cup of Greek yogurt with berries as an afternoon snack. We introduced canned salmon into her lunch a few times a week, something requiring almost no preparation. And we paired it with something simple, standing up and sitting down from her favorite chair, slowly, with control 10 times twice a day, and a short walk to her mailbox and back every morning. Within 8 weeks, Margaret told me she no longer needed to hold the wall when she walked to her bathroom at night. Within 16 weeks, she was walking to the end of her street and back. Her daughter, the same daughter who had been researching facilities, called my office just to thank me, though truly the thanks belonged to Margaret herself, and to the simple, humble foods that had been sitting quietly on grocery store shelves the entire time, waiting to be used. This is what I want for every single one of you listening to me today. I don't want you to simply hear this information and nod along and think, that was interesting, and then continue exactly as you were. I want you to actually use this. I want you tomorrow morning to crack open 2 eggs. I want you to walk down to your kitchen and check if you have a can of sardines or salmon in your pantry. And if you don't, I want that on your grocery list this week. I want you to buy a container of Greek yogurt and a bag of frozen berries. I want you to look at your dinner tonight and ask yourself, is there a serving of leafy greens on this plate? These are not extraordinary demands. These are small, achievable, sustainable shifts that, stacked day after day, month after month, year after year, become the difference between the 2 versions of aging I described at the very beginning of our time together. The version where your legs slowly betray you, and the version where you walk into your grandchild's wedding at 90 years old and climb 2 flights of stairs without a second thought. I also want to gently remind you, because I take my role as a physician seriously even in a conversation like this one, that if you have kidney disease, if you are on blood thinners, if you have specific dietary restrictions or medical conditions, please speak with your own doctor before making significant changes to your protein intake, particularly regarding quantities. What I've shared with you today is general guidance rooted in what research consistently shows benefits most older adults, but your individual health situation is unique to you, and a conversation with your personal physician ensures that what you're doing is not just effective, but safe for your specific circumstances. But for the vast majority of you listening today, healthy adults over 60 simply looking to protect and strengthen your legs as the years go on, the path forward is clearer than it has ever been. Eggs, fatty fish, Greek yogurt and cottage cheese, legumes, leafy greens, berries, healthy fats, adequate vitamin D, consistent hydration, gentle, regular movement. This is not a fad. This is not a trend that will be replaced by some other fad next year. This is simply how the human body has always worked, and it is how the human body will continue to work for as long as we walk this earth. The wisdom here isn't new. It's ancient, really, embedded in the way our grandparents and great-grandparents ate before processed convenience foods reshaped our plates. We are, in many ways, simply returning to what always worked, armed now with the scientific understanding of exactly why it worked. I want to leave you with one final thought before we close today, something I tell every patient who walks into my office worried about growing older. Aging is not something that happens to you. Aging is something you participate in every single day through the choices you make, and food is one of the most powerful, most accessible tools you have in that participation. You cannot control the number on the calendar. You cannot stop time from passing, but you have far more control than you have ever been told over how your body experiences that passing time. Strong legs at 90 are not a matter of luck. They are the accumulated result of decisions made in kitchens, at dinner tables, in grocery store aisles, decade after decade. And the most beautiful part of everything I've shared with you today is this: it is never too early to start, and as we've discussed, it is almost never too late either. Whether you are 60 years old just beginning this journey, or 85 years old wondering if change is still possible, the answer is the same. Your legs, and the life they can still carry you through, are worth this investment, starting today, starting with your very next meal. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this information meant something to you, if you learned even one thing you plan to bring into your kitchen this week, I want to ask you for 2 small favors. First, please hit that subscribe button, because there is so much more I want to share with you. More nutrition science, more practical guidance, more real conversations about what it actually takes to age strong, to age with dignity, to age with your independence fully intact. And second, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me, what is one change you're going to make starting tomorrow? Are you adding eggs to your breakfast? Are you finally trying sardines? Are you committing to that short daily walk? I read every single comment, and I promise you, your story, your commitment, your small victory might be exactly what someone else scrolling through needs to see today to finally begin their own journey towards stronger legs and a stronger, fuller life. Take care of those legs, my friends. They have carried you this far, and with the right care, they are more than capable of carrying you so much further. I'll see you in the next one.